people start joining us then, so we can continue chatting. So it's so funny, Jules, you mentioned Australia that way, and the colonies and so forth. That's funny.
And I never like thought about it growing up, but when I moved to Melbourne, which is like a city, you know, it's a 1 hour flight or like 45-minute flight from where I grew up, people would be like, you have a different accent to us. And I'm like, I thought Australians all sounded the same, but they don't, apparently. Like, we have regional dialects, I guess, as well, which I had no idea growing up. It was just, you know, you just keep learning as you move around and meet different people, and like, oh, I have a different accent. Okay.
Well, it's funny because even in Trinidad has 1.3 million people, and people will say to me, they would be not clear that I'm Trinidadian. And I'm like, I'm totally Trinidadian, but there are, depending on the schools you went to, the accent's a little bit different depending on your culture, your upbringing in Trinidad and where you lived, you know what I mean? It changes the accent too. So people don't always sound the same in Trinidad either, you know, and it's a tiny little island, but we can still sound different.
What's funny with me is I was born in Minnesota, right? So, but I spent most of my time in Colorado. And, but as soon as you get me back into Minnesota just for one day, I am speaking just like him. Don't you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You betcha. Don't you know? And I do. I seriously sound like a Minnesotan. And so if you really start to listen to the way I talk, you'll pick up that I've got that Minnesota tang a little bit.
It's true, like depending on who you're like, so my accent comes out stronger when I'm around Caribbean people, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even consciously do it, but it just is.
Yeah. And so down here, we have a lot of Canadians apparently in our area, and the Canadians start talking to me and they just assume I'm from Canada.
Wow.
And that's kind of funny, because I'm like, that's fine with me, because you'll probably be nicer to me.
You just blend right in wherever you are.
I blend in with the Canadians around here, but I'm really Colorado. But it is fascinating, you know, when you start picking up on other accents, you know, when I talk about my Spanglish thing. I mean, it's like when I'm talking, quote, Spanglish, I actually have this like Mexican sound to me, you know.
Your Bad Bunny phase now, Shah. You've entered your Bad Bunny era.
I know. And they're always like, you need to practice. You need to come practice. I see. And Bruce always says, do you know that every time you say yes, you say yes like 2 to 3 times, like see. He's like,
oh.
and he says, in Colorado, you'd sound ridiculous looking at people going, yes. So I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Sumit. Hey, Sumit.
Hey, Sumit.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Sumit. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
You look like you have little eyeballs on your chest. You got like little wolf face going on there.
Yeah, it's a glow in the dark wolf.
Oh, glow in the dark. Okay.
Wow, that's a scary t-shirt.
It is, yes. But the good thing is, considering the traffic in India, you're less likely to be run over if you're walking in the dark.
Good point.
So you're based in India?
That's right, yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, I see. So smart of you to wear a glow in the dark t-shirt.
That's right. Keeps you points you out in a crowd. So
Yeah.
So really quick, Natalie, just to give you an understanding of everybody's background. So of course, Jules, I mean, very interestingly enough, she's an on-camera coach, and so she helps with that. And plus, she's an actress and a producer, right? Right, Jules?
Wow.
Right, quite busy. And Shar specializes in entrepreneurship, and she has several of her own businesses. And she's run small teams and also large teams. She came when she was in the corporate world. She was in a HR for healthcare systems.
Mm.
And then Sumit Singla has a very significant background in a lot of different large consulting firms, Accenture and so forth. So what's the whole pedigree that you have there, Sumit, the different places you've worked?
Oh, well, just being lucky to be at a few places, Sam, that's all.
Yeah. Okay.
He's being humble.
Yes.
He is. He is.
And so Sumit brings in a very international perspective, and so it's good to have him with us. It looks like we have Howard Niswitz is just joining us. And so
Hi there.
Howard and I actually worked at Barclays together a long time ago. He was on the East Coast and I was on the West Coast, and we were working for different divisions. But Howard has a deep understanding in compensation and systems overall, and so he brings that perspective to the forum.
Nice to meet you, Howard.
Same here.
So Sam, I think you just did my job for me. So plug off right here.
Look at
So much better.
We have my friendly rooster just showed up just in time for the beginning of the
You know
forum.
what, Sam? I was just gonna say that there's definitely a rooster sitting next to you.
Yeah, he just decided to come out, so he's gonna make a lot of noise. So that's gonna be great for our introduction here. So we are at the top of the hour, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring in
That's the alarm bell right there.
yeah, for sure.
Right on time.
All right, here we go.
Did you train him to do that, Sam? All right. You let me know when you've got everything going, Sam, and I'll get started.
Sure, I do have to start the multi-stream, and that'll just take 1 moment here. And perfect, and we're good to go.
Beautiful. All right. Okay. So welcome everyone to the People Strategy Forum. My name is Jules. It's great to have you all here today. Whether you're here for the very first time, welcome. And if you're coming back for the 50th time, 100th time, we've been doing this a while. So we're always really grateful when you can just hop on either live or if you listen to the podcast. We're just grateful that you give us your time. So a little bit about the People Strategy Forum. Today we are discussing cultivating your leadership presence with Natalie Jobity. So I'll introduce her in a moment, but if you have never come here before, you might have just hopped on. We love to just kind of chat, get warmed up, listen to roosters crowing, depending what part in the world we are. We're an international group, so it's always something very different. But the People Strategy Forum, our main mission really is to help engage, energize, and elevate your employees and your company. So we do that by having a panel of hosts. They show up each and every week, and they have expertise and backgrounds in different industries and different skill sets. And then we also add in a guest speaker. So things are always different here, lots of variety and lots of things that you can take away, lots of value. And I'll introduce our panel here. So Sam already kind of did my job if you were listening. He already went through everybody, but let's go through again because they're all so great. I have things fallen down here. Don't mind that. We've got all this background noise today. Okay, so I'm Jules. I'll be hanging out in the chat. So if you have any questions for our speaker today, write it in there and I'll make sure that they get transferred to our speaker. We have Shah, who is a former HR professional turned entrepreneur, living in different parts of the world, based in Mexico right now. She has also been a career coach, and she has so much experience in starting and running successful businesses. We also have Sumit, who is a people strategist and really excels in many areas of human resources, and he consults for many different companies. He's helped with diversity and inclusion, with mergers, and so much more. And we also have Howard, who is part of the Cruet Comp team, and he specializes in giving modern day solutions to companies in the areas of compensation. He helps with their strategy, helps them get away from the old way of doing compensation, and gives them newer software so that they can run more efficiently. So that brings me to our lovely guest speaker that we have. We have Natalie Jobity, and she is Such an accomplished woman. I'm so excited to have her here. She is a transformational leadership coach. She is an author. She is a speaker and a personal brand strategist. And she has 25 years of experience working in image consulting, marketing, entrepreneurship. Her website is theunveiledway.com. And she is just overall really awesome. Love her energy. She's from Trinidad and Tobago. We were just kind of discussing where it is on the map. So as I said, we're an international group, but she's in Maryland. So that's where she's based out of. So we're very excited to dive in. And she has been so generous. I really encourage you to stay to the end of today's forum because she has like 6 different things that we're giving away. So many goodies, like links. A lot of it's free. So definitely hang on to the end. I'm going to be dropping the links in the chat so that you can continue your journey with Natalie. But let's hand it over to Natalie and Sam. Thank you so much for being here, Natalie. As I said, so excited to see what we come up with here on the forum today.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
So Natalie, I know I know you've done so much and you're so busy. I mean, I know you have so many programs to tell us about here at the end of our discussion today. But can you tell us where it all started? I mean, what gave you this passion to help leaders in the way you do develop their presence and so forth?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I think like all of us know, we kind of evolve into the roles we're in at different phases in our lives. And I will just say that I don't think I saw myself doing this. So I started off my career, 3 degrees, ended up in marketing research, was very good at my job and my role, but I kind of knew that it was not my purpose, but I was so good at it. I rose through the ranks and spent my career there for over 15 years. But somewhere along the way, I was like, I need to figure out what I'm really supposed to be doing. And so it's so interesting because I have a creative side of me and a very strategic brain. And so I think with the clients I work with now, I get it. Like we always think we have to choose one or the other. So I was using my strategic brain and all those things in my career, but I kind of wanted to like see what my creative side would blossom into. And so the image consulting kind of like just popped into like my radar. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this thing I love. Fashion and style and empowering people and dressing for success and all that stuff just really spoke to my spirit. And so I left my very lucrative career at the time and jumped into entrepreneurship with like just totally like on a passion and energy or whatever. And it just bore so many interesting fruit that I would have never imagined. Like I was on TV doing interviews. I wrote a best-selling book on style, but I guess the biggest part is working with so many women and seeing how just helping them with their visual presentation, how it boosted their confidence, how it changed the game for some of them. And so entirely, like even from reading my book, I would have reviewers say things like, "You changed my life," and I'm like, wow, like I know I was trying to make an impact, but like just making that kind of impact was just so humbling and so like, wow. So in the journey of me being an image consultant, at some point I was like, I think my strategic brain was like, I need some more input, I need to be used and leveraged more. And it started to get a little bit too rote for me. I needed some more challenge and more things to think about. And so I went on another journey of what am I supposed to do now? I thought this was my thing. And then it was just like, that took a while, like to figure out like what it would be. But then the coaching seed was planted. And when I started to get certified into that, I realized I had another gift entirely of like really with my words and my conviction and my insights to help people see what they're meant to do and see their potential and see how they could shine like really like brilliantly, not from a output perspective, but coming from the inner outer. And that confidence that comes from inside coming out, and the impact that we can have when we're in our brilliance, as I like to say, that is what like literally lights me up and gets me so engaged and so excited. And that's the purpose of my work right now, and helping women and a few good men to be in their brilliance, to operate from their finest, highest, most best version of themselves that's possible to make the greatest impact in their arenas.
Yeah, I know that when you were mentioning about making an impact and not for yourself and not only that, but for leaders. And, I find that is so important. I mean, as we develop in our careers and become more accomplished, that seems to be what makes the difference, what matters the most. I mean, it's almost like, okay, well, I'm successful now. It's about, how much value we can create for people and the people that work for us and so forth.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Like one of the words I keep using now is legacy. It's about what legacy am I leaving in this domain, this role, the planet, the world. Like what is my imprint? What is me being here? How is it going to matter at the end of the day? Like, so I feel like, I don't know if everybody feels like this, but I certainly know that at the end, it doesn't matter how much money I've made. It matters who remembers me and what I did for them, and what was life or perspective or whatever was changed because of their interaction with me. Who did I make a difference for? Like at the end of the day, that's what matters to me. And with the clients I work with, I always, if it comes from that place of impact, and if the person doesn't care about the impact and they just care about money, then we're not a good fit, because that is not the driver to be aligned with the people that I help, and the people who want to make an impact. That has to matter to them as much as it matters to me. I think nothing's wrong with money. Money is great. We all want to live nice, healthy, comfortable lives, and that's obviously important. But to me, if it's the driver, then I feel like one is missing the purpose part of why we're here. It's like we're all here for a reason. We're all alive and doing the things we're doing for a purpose, and to be walking that purpose and making that mark, to me, is the point.
Totally agree. Yeah, and so I think that is something that a lot of people have discovered here over the past several years, is that there's more to work and life, that we need to be concerned about. And so I think that's brought to the forefront. But what have you experienced over the past several years in leadership in your coaching practice? What
have I experienced personally? I think it's my own evolution. I think it's my own. I think this idea of leadership and being a leader can be intimidating for a lot of women, especially. And we think like, well, yeah, maybe I'm good at this, so I do this, but am I really a leader? And I think for me, the clarification and the sort of like the revelation that so many of us are leaders, and we're walking like you don't know we're leaders. We're walking like if we're like unaware, and we're not posturing as the leaders that we really are. And so I think even for me personally, this notion of me coaching leaders, that meant that I also led. Even though I'd led in the past, I didn't think I was leading as a coach. But I think the revelation came to me that anything that has an impact, where you're impacting lives and where you're putting yourself out there, leadership is about people. At the end, we all know, right? It's about people. It's people first. And so when you're engaged with people in any kind of way that's making a difference, then you're in leadership, right? It's like, we don't have to make the word this like unattainable, intimidating thing. It's like, so for me, the revelation was, I'm a leader, and the people I work with are leaders, or leaders in the make. And it's about showing and spotlighting and guiding people along that journey to see how they can be the best version of a leader that they are designed to be, because leadership looks differently on different people. And I think the old way of seeing things was a leader has to do this, or be like this, or look like this, or act like this. And I think what I'm trying to put out here in the marketplace is that there's no one style leadership. It's like all very unique and differentiated. And if we can all lean into that, I think we'll have a world and a marketplace of leaders who are really doing amazing things, because we're all doing the things where we are aligned, and where we best shine, and where we best make the impact. But when we try to fit into the mold of the old way of doing things, or the standard, or what, we know what I'm saying here, then it's like some of us don't fit those molds very well at all. And so we don't get to thrive and do well, because that's not meant for us. Authentic, I love that, the leadership.
Yes, well, I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of manager people leaders face is that one day they're an individual contributor, right, and then they're made into a manager. Yeah. And then there's this over time this metamorphosis into what is called leadership, and a lot of times people just feel like they're when they're moving into that manager role, they just have that imposter syndrome. I mean, what do what do I know? What do I mean, how I'm brand new. How do I lead these people? How do I help them out and be successful? So how do you help leaders overcome that imposter syndrome?
Such a big thing. And at the end of the day, it's all about mindset, and it's all about our inner game, right? So imposter syndrome, I know a lot of, the stats have shown that more women suffer from that than men, but of course men suffer from it too, struggle with it too. And even people like I've quoted that Michelle Obama has shared publicly recently that she still struggles with sometimes, like on the stages, she's like, why am I here? Do I deserve to be here? So it's not about what you are able to do, what you've accomplished. Imposter syndrome is that whole notion of I don't belong, I don't fit in, I'm not deserving or qualified or whatever. And the path that I take to help my clients, because so many of us and they all struggle with things like that, or insecurities and self-doubt, is to go back to what are you bringing? What do you have to offer? Back to like what makes you exceptional, and really having them embrace, I call it embrace their brilliance. And brilliance is a word that I use all the time, but it means all your expertise, all your secret sauces, all your superpowers, all the things that you do so well that you don't even see that you're doing them so well. How can you embrace your brilliance and really know that I bring this and this matters in this domain? And then there's that part. And then there's a part of, when that imposter starts to chat, how can you talk back to that imposter in a way that, so a lot of times people will say, just say, no, I don't want to hear that voice. Shut up. But there's a kind of gentler way to speak to that imposter that makes it like, okay, you can say like, imposter, I see you. Critic, and I used to say, give it a name. Let's say, Sally, I see you. I see what you're doing. You're trying to protect me. And I want to just let you know that I appreciate that. But right now, I don't need your protection. So buzz off, in a nice, funny way. But actually, that approach to our imposter makes it less like scary and like, oh my God, whatever. And it's a gentler approach to managing that narrative that the imposter is birthed from, those negative mindsets or old narratives that we were told, or things we have believed in that make the imposter come alive. And usually when we are on the cusp of doing something more visible, more influential, that's when the imposter is loudest. And so it's at those transitional points when we're about to be even more in our brilliance that we really have to work with our mindset, our inner game, get our confidence in the place it needs to be, and really quiet that voice and listen to the truth of who we are, what we bring, what we're about, and why we're here. And then at the end of the day, remind ourselves that it's not about us per se, it's about our being in service to the people that we're meant to serve. It's not about yes, we all have personal brands and I care about that and it matters, but it's not about me as much as what my impact will be. If we can remind ourselves about that more often, I think the imposter will be more quiet.
I just want to say, I wish I would have met you earlier in my career because of that, because I struggled with having a boss that said I had to have a power do, and he said that I needed to dye my hair darker, and that I'm going to come across as some ditzy blonde. And needless to say, his boss promoted me to HR manager like a month after he told me that. Wow. So and relocated me to Seattle. And so I was like, so I guess I don't need to chop my hair off and make it black, but when I was in that position, and I had that little voice in my head, I had that former HR manager telling me, you don't look the part of an HR manager. You don't look like an HR person. You need to look different, act different. You need to stop twirling your hair, which I have worked on, but just stuff like that, because I was sitting in a room, no offense, gentlemen, but I was sitting in a room of older gentlemen at the time, because I was only like 26 years old as their HR manager. And it was very intimidating at times, very intimidating, because I was standing up to the president and saying things about the culture and saying things that needed to change in the organization. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job because I don't belong here. I'm just,
yeah.
So just to step into my own back then. Now, as I matured, I think I started to learn that. But I think having someone like you as a coach, even at no matter what, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in the corporate environment, I think everybody needs a coach. And I've said this, you mentioned Michelle Obama, but I mean, even her husband as president needed a coach. Everyone needs a coach, right?
You're speaking my language, Shah. Exactly. Because we all have, because the back to like, who's in our circle, who's in our head, whose voices are we hearing? Sometimes it's our boss, sometimes it could be our family, you know, and those
Oh yeah,
dismiss or diminish our power and potential can get so loud. And as women, so many of us were taught, well, we're not supposed to be this way or do this thing. I know for my culture, oh my God, the Caribbean culture, you as women, you were literally like, don't speak out, don't stand out too much. And I'm 6 feet tall. Like, I always bring this up because it was such a like, I don't want to be this tall, but I am, and I didn't want to have to people to notice me all the time, but they did. And it was such like, when I go back home now, people still look at me a certain way. I'm like, oh my God, get over it. I'm 6 feet tall. It's okay. But this whole notion that I couldn't shine because I didn't have what it takes, but what you just shared is so common, Shaw. Like, so many people have bosses or colleagues or people in their work professional environment who are literally tearing them down. And then that voice becomes so loud, that person can't believe in their own brilliance, because it's like somebody else is saying they're wrong and they're believing that person more than themselves. And so having a coach, and I always tell my clients this, like, my objective perspective, and I have no attachment to whatever outcome happens with you. I'm just here for you, whatever you need. Having that reason, that foundation, that truth, that person who's there to support and uplift and build you up, and to also challenge you and give you a different way of seeing things. Everybody needs that. I need that, right? So this whole idea of, I just love that you brought that, because I wouldn't have said it, but it's like, it's so true, because even those of us who have accomplished, like I said, like the Obamas and whoever, all the people that the Oprahs of the world, Oprah had Maya Angelou as her mentor. We all need those mentors and people, our champions. Absolutely.
What do you think, Sumit? I know that that when we're looking at coaching, I mean, it's important that, you know, we're all, like, for instance, not experts in everything, right? There's areas that we don't excel in. And so having a person come in and help us develop in some of those areas is quite critical. But also there's plenty of things that we just don't see about ourselves because, you know, we have blinders on. So Sumit, I know that you've spoken about that before. What are your thoughts there?
I think the second part of what you said makes a lot of sense, Sam, where we don't see things. Like, if you consider some of the topmost sports persons in the world, whether it's Michael Jordan or Rafael Nadal or whoever it is, they've got at least one coach who may not be anywhere close to being as accomplished a player as they are. But the value of the coach is not in being a superior player. The value of the coach is in being able to identify those little gaps in performance and trying to knit together the story, saying these are 2 or 3 of the areas that you would need to work on. So it's a different skill. The coach doesn't have to be a champion of the game that they're playing to be effective. And I think that's where the real coaches bring value, and that's why they're so highly paid and so highly coveted for their services as well. And it's interesting that the same logic somehow doesn't apply to a lot of companies, and leaders fail to see the value of coaches, whereas it's incredibly strong as a technique to unlock value.
Yeah, and I think I'll say this to top on that. And I don't get handsomely paid as the sports coaches out there at all. I wish I did, but what I would say is, when people have a taste of what that experience is like the container that a good coach like I do create to help that client bring their full self to that space, so that the real things can be addressed and corrected, when they have that experience. I have a client who literally, we've been working over 2 years. She got to from director to VP, thinking about SVP, but it's like the work, it's never ends. The work we do for ourselves to become the best leaders we can be, to bring our best presence as a leader, it never ends, because it keeps building on what we have built. It keeps growing from what we've already grown and developed. So, and then the challenges and the things that the landscapes and the places we're in changes too. So there's always that need to have that objective party who is for you, who knows what you bring, to remind you, to challenge you, to champion you, and to make you, as you said, Sumit, to see the gaps and to see the way you're missing, or you're not being your aligned self. There's so many things that a good coach brings. And I don't want to we're kind of taking the conversation another place right now, but I'm just glad that we even got here, because it's so something we don't talk about enough.
Sure. Now, one thing that to kind of go back to where we discussed before about becoming a manager, becoming a leader. First of all, what is the difference between a manager and a leader, and then how do we start developing that presence that's so important to become a leader and being influential?
Okay, yeah. So if I forget the second question, remind me, because I'll go off in my head and forget the second part of the question. But what's the difference between a manager and a leader? I see. So there's this thing that changes someone to when they become leadership potential and leadership material, and it has to do with when you're the one doing, when you're the one producing, when you're the one executing. That's not when you're leading. That's when you're doing, and that's when you're performing. That's when you're the high achiever and all those things, subject matter expert, all those things. But what makes you a leader? So manager does all those things, executes. He could be managing people, but he's doing, he or she is doing and creating and doing all those things. But to get to leadership, it's about being. Who are you being? And so posturing this not just authority and agency, but also this idea back to heart-centered, authentic, service to the people you are managing and leading. Leadership is about people. And when you're able to engage and interact with the people that you lead in a way that inspires them, builds them up, gives them, motivates them, encourages them, all of those things, that's when you're leading. So leading is about being, managing is about doing, leading is about being. And that's how I see leadership it's all, to me, it's all about being, and so less about doing anything really, right? So that's the first part. The second part about the presence, and this is the crux of the thing today, right? The presence is everything, because if you come in a room as a leader and you're not evoking a presence that makes people think, I need to listen to what this person has to say, or I need to then you've just totally missed the mark in your leadership, because you're not going to get the respect, the engagement, the buy-in, all the things that you want as a leader. So the presence part matters, because for you to attract and engage and interact in a way that changes the game and what you're doing as a leader, you have to bring that command. And command is about so many things. That the word command means, it's such a vague word that we all know what it is, because we've all experienced someone walk into a room and it's like, wow, this person has presence, and we don't even know why we're saying what we're saying, but we know that, like, so one of the people I actually think that we all know that had it so strong was Barack Obama. He just had, whether he was in a room, whether he was talking, he had a certain way he would posture himself, very, very calm, very in control, very managed, very empathetic, just his words alone had presence. His words alone had gravitas. And then he had an air about him that always made you feel like he was somebody important. And then when he spoke, it was like, he would say all those things, right? So this idea of command is about our energetics. It's about our vibe. It's about our authority. It's about our agency in ourselves, because again, it comes from who we feel we are in ourselves first to even evoke that outward. And then it's about how we communicate. Barack Obama had the gift of the gab. And many good leaders actually are very good communicators. And it's not just about the speaking, it's also about the listening. Are they able to listen to what people are saying so that they can respond from a place of, I heard that, I really heard where they were coming from, and I can respond, versus just talking. So it's not about the talking, it's about more about the listening and then responding from that place. And then in terms of communication, it's about the nonverbals. So much of presence is the things that we actually don't even realize we're doing with our hands, with our posture, with our different things, our antics. So much. There's this, when I was an image consultant, I've always showed this slide when I gave a Dress for Success seminar, and it was based on this sociolinguist. His name is, I would pronounce it wrong, Albert Merahabian. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. He had this statistic about first impressions. So it was that first impressions are formed mostly from the visual, and that was like more than 50%. And then about 40% was about the voice. Sorry, the bigger part was about the visual. The 40-something% or less was about the communication, the voice, and only 7% was about what the person actually said. So in terms of, I use that slide to show that you can be saying all the great things, but if your vibe and your visual and your communication doesn't give off the good things, nobody's going to listen to you, right? So it's all back to why presence matters. And because I spent so many years helping women and men look their part to convey that leadership and that aura of who they were and their best self outward. But it's so much more than just that visual look. It's all about what I'm saying before: the command, the communication, the nonverbals, the confidence. Confidence is a huge part of what we bring in our presence. When you lack confidence, you're not going to be getting people's attention. You're not going to be able to hold the room with what you're saying. You're not going to be able to capture an audience, right? So that confidence, again, that's an inner game. And so to lead with presence is about your command. It's about your communication. It's about your confidence. I'm about the alliteration, the C's here. And it's about the clothing, all the things how you look and how you express your particular brand of leadership.
So Howard, I know that you've been around a lot of great leaders and large organizations and so forth, and seeing different levels of management across those organizations. Now, have you been able to put a pin on what distinguishes presence in that environment? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
I think, one of the key things, and you touched on it, is communication. To able to bring people on board. It's not just enough to win their minds, you have to win their hearts as well. And that's a special skill. And the most successful leaders that I've seen really get people excited and energized, and they win their hearts. And that is so important in terms of being a good leader. And also being a good leader means also admitting that you don't have all the answers, that you can marshal the resources that you need to work up viable, solutions, but, not to expect that, come to me and I can solve all the world's problems. Those, I think, are the critical things that I've seen.
And I would just chime in on that, Howard, the part about not being the knower, having to have all the answers. When one is confident, one doesn't feel the need to know everything. That's about back to confidence at the end of the day.
Right.
When you have that confidence, you're like, you know what, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you and talk to blah, 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 and we'll get an answer. We'll solve this problem. A leader who is confident doesn't have all the answers, doesn't feel they have to have, because they know it's not about them again at the end of the day. It's about what they're doing and the impact they're having, so they can find the people who have those answers and bring those people forward. But yeah, I think that what you just said about the energizing, like when we think of the great leaders in our time, it's like, I like what you said, capturing hearts. And I think this whole idea of heart-centered leadership is one I embrace. It's one I promote, because I believe at the end of the day, to really get people to make their impact as a leader, you have to capture their hearts, so that they'll be ignited to do the things that they have to do to make the vision come to being. So, and to do, for them to be at that point where they're able to give their all to make the vision that you have as a leader, as in a company, to bring it into being, their hearts have to be stirred. They have to be engaged. They have to be aligned with them. Their values have to be aligned with the values of the company. And there's so much that goes into that. But I just love everything you just said, Howard.
What do you do?
Everybody-
I have a question for you. What do you do if someone is introverted or shy? How do you work with them to help them develop their leadership skills?
Well, can I just confess that I'm a high introvert myself? So
I never would have guessed that.
I would totally relate. I'll be like, okay, here I am. This is me. I'm such an introvert. Like, oh my God. So this is what I say to the introverts who say, well, I'm an introvert. I'll say, you know what? That can be an excuse that you're leaning on that isn't necessarily true. That in terms of just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you don't have the capacity to engage and interact with people in a very strong, compelling way. I'm not the person who is in a room when even though I'm really visible, I'm not the person that necessarily gets all the sort of attention. But when I am in the small circles and one-on-one, I am powerful. I know that about myself. So I know I can lead. I lead best in smaller groups, in smaller engagements, or in one-on-one. That's when my leadership is at its finest. So to answer that question, I'll tell that introvert, when do you feel most confident in yourself and what you're bringing, and what environment sets you up to thrive so that you can keep bringing that consistently? Because as introverts, I did it too. I told myself, oh, I'm not supposed to be out there. I'm not supposed to be visible. I never thought I'd be on TV. The things I've done is like blows my own mind, because I'm such an introvert. But because I do things, and I say this often now because it's so true for me, when I know something will help me in service to my mission as a transformational leadership coach, I will do the hard thing. So if it means going on TV and I don't like that and it's uncomfortable for me, I will do it in service to my mission. So for anyone who cares about the impact that they're making in their arena, if you do the hard things, the visible things, the being out there and networking, all the things that we introverts are like, oh, please, no more, right? You do it in service to your mission and vision.
So let's go back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as taking the first tactical steps to become a leader and get that presence that we were talking about. And I know that you have a piece here on a background in the fashion area and so forth. But there's, sorry, I got my rooster is telling us to wake up, and it's all quite important to wake up right now. But one of the things that I've dealt with earlier in my career is that, you know, I used to have to wear suits.
He wants to chime in, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Used to have to wear suits a lot, and now that's changed to be more casual and approachable. So how's that changed, and how should leaders be thinking about that now?
The way they dress, right? Yeah, so, oh gosh, you had to ask that question, Sam. So even back, like when I was in consulting, that's like a good 7 years ago, one more, business casual was already a thing, right? And so gone were the days where, like when I was taught with my image consulting training, you know, we were taught suits and certain things. And so, but by the time I was doing my own thing, I'm like, everybody doesn't have to wear a suit to be a leader, or to give off that vibe of success or leadership. Suits work for certain people, certain professions. But I would always say back then, I would say, where are you located? What part of the country? What is your field? How are the people around you in your company? So like all those things matter in terms of, can you show up in a way that goes with where you are and the geography and the company you work for? But that was then. Now I would say something more along, because COVID changed all that whole thing about dressing a certain way. Like, so we had people showing up with a talk show host with their hair grown out, gray. I mean, everything went totally upside down with COVID, but I think in a good way, because now women are showing up with, like, women who thought they had to come with straight hair, Black women who had to feel like they had to have their hair. My hair's in braids. I like it. When I was in corporate America, would I have worn braids like this? Probably not. But I think now we all feel we have the permission to show up the way we feel most aligned, men and women. So whether it's curly hair, braids, wearing maxi dresses, because I mean, the whole fashion style game in terms of how we show up as in a professional environment has changed because of what COVID did for us. And I think, and again, I'm so for this, it's like it's giving people the freedom to be and express who they really are from a style fashion perspective. And so it gives the people who are still doing image consulting work so much more room to flourish and be like, oh, I have all these options for you now, because now we have a bigger plate to work with. Whereas before, I think even just before COVID, things were starting to loosen up for sure. I mean, I think with companies, with the whole, like the Googles of the world and the Amazons, like think with all the open air space, all that stuff, all that kind of like having to wear a tie and all this stuff was all out the door anyway. But I think now in 2003, 2004, going forward, I think people are going to show up pink hair, you know, may not be so like, oh my God, that person has pink hair. It's like, they're not professional. Do we really care if they have pink hair anymore as much? Like, it's about what, again, back to their presence. If that pink hair is aligned with their brand, which is part of their, and their presence is part of their brand, then they're on point. So I will say the short answer is, if your leadership presence, which is part of your personal brand, is expressed in the way that is aligned with your brilliance, then you're doing the right thing.
Sorry, Sumit, go ahead.
That makes a lot of sense, and it just reminds me of a funny story when a few days ago, a client I was starting to work with after a long time just calls me at random and says, the first thing he says on the call is, are you open to getting a haircut and having short hair? And before I could respond, then he says, are you open to being clean shaven and getting rid of your beard as well? And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't like the way this conversation's going, and maybe I should just walk away from this bit of business. I don't want people dictating how I don't want people dictating the extent of my facial hair, or whether I wear my hair long or short. And then I said, no, not really. But why do you ask? So it was, he was just playing a joke on me. He said, the only picture I have of you is about 5 years old, and I don't want to put this on the company materials. So in case you're planning a change in look, good. Otherwise, just send me an updated picture. But I mean, jokes aside, I think like you just said, Natalie, these conversations have become less frequent, and I think people are becoming more open to, not only because of COVID, but also because of the fact that we're now in a global workforce, and people are bound to have different appearances. People could be working in different time zones. So if you're based in the US, it's morning time for you. I'm sitting here fairly late in the evening. Expecting me to dress up in a suit and a tie could just be, I mean, it could actually be a roadblock in getting good output.
Yeah.
So people should be comfortable in what they're wearing, as long as they're able to decide what's professional and what's not, rather than it being written in company policies and handbooks and documents.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, just looking at us in this Zoom room right now, we're all dressed differently. Like this is the exact a point about like today's.
Jules and I.
Sorry?
I said, except for Jules and I, we're the Bobsey twins.
Right.
True. We always end up matching somehow. It's never planned, guys. It's just like some sort of.
Yeah, but we're all dressed in different ways to suit where we are, who we are, what we're doing. But in the old way, it would have been, we'd all show up looking professional, right? With a jacket or whatever. I like to wear color, so I'm wearing colorful stuff. That's like part of my brand. But I think this notion of what looks professional is an outdated even question. And I think it's more about who is professional, not about what they look like. Like, what are they doing, and what are they creating and building and whatever. That's more the question than like what they look like or how they show up.
Well, I have to share my perspective about this, and I've shared this story before. Particularly in healthcare, I would come in at night or during the evening shift and actually meet with the employees. One of the few HR people that did, they always called me HR with a heart. And that's probably because I was so compassionate about my employees that I worked with and my leaders. But the ER employees gave me a lot of, I was trying to do a sexual harassment training, boy, that was fascinating, with the night shift of the ER people. But at any rate, they're like, you don't do what we do. You don't see what we see. But anyway, their point is that they were so annoyed by the executives walking through in their power suits, and they referred to all the executives as the suits, including me, because I also have my little suit. And I had to be thinking about that, like when I was rounding, as we used to call it, rounding, and actually getting away from my computer, because sadly, a lot of leaders are constantly on their computers. You know, that's how they communicate. We don't get out and roundabout. We don't get out and see our people. But also to be sensitive that my suit might be a negative for the perspective of who I represent. And maybe I should consider, I mean, I'm not going to go out because I shouldn't be wearing like, you know, like a doctor's jacket. Obviously, there's laws against that. But to just remember when I'm out, just to see how I'm dressed and perceived and interacting.
Well, that's back to the whole presence part. That speaks exactly to the presence part, Shaw. Like, how do I want to be? That's one of the things I would say in my seminars back in the day. How do you want to come across? And if you want to come across as the heart-centered, empathetic, compassionate person, you're not going to be wearing suits. Are like hard. Suits are like lines and rigid and structured. It gives off the opposite of soft and compassionate and all those things. And so if you want to come across as those things, I would say wear the types of clothing with the colors and the lines and the structure that convey that, and have your whole, not just your clothes, your whole presence reflect the thing that you're trying to convey with the people that matter. And I think that's an excellent point back to the presence, is that at the end of the day, the suit and jacket isn't necessarily serving us in our roles. Some people, yes, maybe a banker still needs to have a suit and jacket on because they're a banker, but for most fields, it doesn't really serve, and that it can actually hurt and diminish our presence. Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, I heard it a lot. So definitely, well, now I'm in temperatures that are rising, you know, we're getting into the, it's almost 90 degrees, you know, it's 85, going to be 90 here soon. So I'm sorry, I don't have the sleeves on right now.
Let me give you an example. So I was just in Trinidad 2 weeks ago. I was in Trinidad for 2 weeks, and I had a TV interview via Zoom, and it was so hot where I was doing that interview. Same thing, like 90 degrees. I'm like, I am not wearing anything with sleeves. I don't care. My mother is there. Why are you wearing a sleeveless? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be me here, and it doesn't matter what I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel, so old me would have felt the need to have a jacket on, even though I'm hot, even though I'm uncomfortable, and it doesn't make sense on a TV interview. And the new me said, I'll go with what works right now, and this is what I have, and I'm putting it on.
That's right. Unless, you know, particularly when you have all those hot lights on you, right, Jules? You know,
Oh my God.
when you're on set, I mean, how miserable to be on set and to be, you know.
And then they turn off the AC because it makes too much noise. So you were just like, you just feel the sweat coming down. You're like, I need like, you know, like a little personal fan. Yeah, it's yeah, the lights, yeah, they do get, you know, you start melting. You need like 3 layers of makeup.
Yeah, or your mascara is dripping, but when I'm with Sam, however, he's planning big conferences in a big, powerful conference room, right, Sam? And you're going to have it cold as heck, aren't you? You're going to have that air conditioning blasting.
It'll be nice. It'll be nice and comfortable. But we're going to talk about that. So just that's a good segue. So as we just talk about that really quick, I do want to acknowledge our next week's speaker and to talk about the concept of hot, and we're going to go all the way to burnout. So our next week's speaker is going to be Vanessa Bennett. She's going to talk about having high performance without having that burnout. And this is really closely aligned with the event that Shar is speaking about that is also coming up. So it is about how to do more with less. So one of the things that we're dealing with right now is that the overall labor force is almost non-existent. We've heard a lot of our colleagues speak about, well, I can't find people to do the work and so forth. Well, this is not going away. As we see here, on this slide, the labor force crisis is only going to get worse over the next several years. So basically, this red line here shows the amount of 50-year-olds that are available in the workplace now. And then as we can see in the United States and here in Canada, that is starting to shrink down more. Now it is increasing a little bit here in Mexico, but if we don't bring these people in, then we're still going to be experiencing some of those struggles with the labor force. And then overall, we're seeing that these population amounts are starting to flatten out. So it's something that's not going away. So I'm trying to encourage leaders out there to join me at the AI Advantage Conference, which is next month, May 16th in Denver. And we're going to have different types of venues. You can join us live and get some additional benefits. We'll have some special closed door sessions about AI and how to use it in your business. But if you happen to not able to join us live, you can still attend in a virtual way. And we'll be talking about a lot of these topics, such as how to recruit using AI, how to onboard our people, how to use compensation and benefits, and using the power of AI in those settings. So all things around our people management and HR, of how to do more with less, increase productivity, so that we can compete in this future environment of the shrinking labor force. All right, so a lot to be looking forward to there. But Natalie, when we're thinking about this in the perspective of leadership, I mean, there's a lot of things that leaders need to prepare for the future. I mean, and having that presence is quite important. But one of the things that I often run into is that there seems to be almost a double standard with leaders versus employees. We're talking about, oh, we want our employees, we want to create a flexible work environment. We want to ensure that they are always thinking about their people and so forth. But then again, companies and the senior leadership don't want their leaders to take time off, or when it comes down to things like taking care of their elders and so forth, they seem to be less flexible. So how should leaders model that behavior?
That's an interesting question, Sam. I mean, I guess to me, the short answer to that would be you model what you walk the talk. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the talk. And so if your company and if the company that you're in is all about an environment, a healthy environment where employees thrive, and some of those things are flexible schedules and certain things like that, and more paid time off and all of those things, remote work, all those practices, then the leadership has to come top down. I mean, it has to be modeled from top down. And so if leaders are feeling that like they can't walk the talk that they're giving to their employees, then there's a misalignment there to me. And it's almost like I guess my whole posture or perspective on things is it has to be in alignment, else it's not true, it's hypocritical if it's not authentic if it's not in integrity if it's not. So if you're trying to create a culture of where employees can thrive and where they can bring their full selves and show up and do work in impactful ways, then you have to show them what that looks like, because they're actually going to look to you to guide how they behave. And you as the leader have to model what you're talking. So that's my perspective on that.
Well, thank you. Well, I know we're coming towards the top of the hour, and Jules, do we have any questions or anything, comments on the chat we need to bring out?
Nothing's popped up. I mean, but it's been very active, like a lot of I love this advice. And so it's been very interactive. But if anyone does have any last minute questions, but I think we've just been so tuned in to Natalie, it's just been so great. And Samia always comes through with great feedback. She said, another great session. Thank you so much. And I agree. It's been so fun and uplifting. And just, you made it fun. So like, it's easier to remember a lot of the quotes, and a lot of the quotes I'm going to just be writing somewhere and sticking up where I can see it. And I loved how you addressed imposter syndrome, because I struggle with that so much. And just the way you described how to just gently tell it to go away and give her a name or him a name. And so I love it. This was a really, really great session.
I would just like to say to that point, I actually, in my book, It's Your Time to Shine, Girl, I have a whole chapter on imposter syndrome. And it's one of my favorite chapters because I have one on confidence and one on imposter syndrome, because I knew and understand how big a saboteur those things can be for women in being their best version of themselves. And it's in the first third of the book, the first section of the book called No, it's about knowing yourself. And part of knowing yourself is knowing how to counteract those voices and knowing how to build your confidence and knowing what brilliance you bring. So I want to just kind of chime in with my book here, because literally I speak so strongly about imposter syndrome because it comes up all the time, and because I literally have written a whole chapter in my book about it.
Well, I know that a lot of our listeners may have more questions. And so how can they reach out to you, Natalie? And also, I know that you have several events happening. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So the best way to reach out to me is on my website, The Unveiled, and it's UNVEILED, unveiledway.com. Everything's on there, but follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram to keep up with all my happenings and shenanigans. I have a special coaching offer called Momentum Accelerator that Jules will put in the chat. That's a 90-minute session. Like, it's meant to do the thing, get you the clarity, get you the give you a taste of what coaching with me is like, but also get you some results that are instantaneous if that's what you're looking for. Also, I'm collaborating with Kashawn Hughes, who's a neuro coach. We're doing a series that will be streamed on LinkedIn and on YouTube called A New Leadership Playbook. It's every other Tuesday. The next one's May 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to cover a whole lot of topics, especially things that high achievers like she and I, recovering high achievers, have dealt with, struggled with, worked through, and coming from a perspective of coaches, how we can help people develop a new way to lead in a way that makes them truly shine.
It's going to be a great session. I love Kashawn. She's such a powerful speaker, and you are too, Natalie. So it's so wonderful having you on. Thank you so much.
It's been such a pleasure, and I love the comments. I love the conversation. I love all the different things we touched on. And this group is a wonderful group, and you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.
Right.
You've been a great pleasure.
And I've just put all the links in the chat. I said she was generous. I wasn't joking. Like, there are so many links here. So there's also a free leadership quiz. There's a leadership confidence guide. I'm like downloading everything the minute we get off here. So yeah, definitely check it all out. There's even a chapter from Natalie's book too. So I put that in there. So if you're like on the fence about getting the book, I don't know why you would be, but if you want to check out that chapter just to see what it's about, and then run to the other link, the book link, which I put there, then get the book. So it's all there for you guys. I just love this. Thank you for being so generous with all your different ways of connecting and quizzes, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Natalie, are you on Audible? Or anything auditory?
Oh, this is a question I keep getting asked. It's going to get there, but it's not there yet. I know. Okay. So many people, we don't have time to read anymore, right? I get it.
We're always on airplanes and stuff.
But you'd have to narrate it.
Sorry?
Yeah, we'll have to actually read it.
But narrate it yourself. I'm reading Ashley Graham, the model, her book. She does the introduction, and I thought she was going to kind of carry it through because I like her personality. Her voice is really interesting to listen to, but she got a narrator for the rest of it. And I was like, oh no, it kind of like, it doesn't carry the same, like.
Oh yeah. I'm totally narrating it myself. Like, it's not, yeah, because I have to, my accent, my way of talking, everything has to be in there. Yes.
Yeah, I look forward to that. So, but I'll definitely look at your book prior to that, but I look forward to hearing your voice on that.
Thank you. Sam, thank you for this. This has been great, a great invitation and a great, just a great interaction and dialogue on things that we don't talk about enough, like this whole idea of presence and how to show up, how to lead with, authentically. All these things are topics I think we need more conversations around, actually.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. All right. Well, take care, everyone, and see you next week on the People's Forum.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.